show.
Welcome to episode 45 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener and you enjoy the show, we would really appreciate it if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you enjoy the content, it would be a big time help if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. All right, everybody. As of Monday, December 13th, 2021, the Toronto Maple Leafs sit in second place in the Atlantic Division behind the Florida Panthers. They won 2 out of 3 games this past week. Everything is fine in Leafs land. There's nothing bad going on. There's no crisis. They're not losing. Things are okay, but Lepore and I still have a lot to talk about, and you're going to want to stay tuned for some of our takes on this episode. But now it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Anthony Bruno. As always, when we're recording a pod, episode 45, shout out goes to Jonathan Bernier. You can write a lot of books about the history of Toronto Maple Leafs goaltending, and I think Bernier goes right in that category of goalies that it's not really fair to judge. And I'll die on that hill because I actually thought Bernier was a pretty good goalie. That was just a shitty ass team in front of him. Like, I think Bernier had some talent and he had some potential to be a very good goalie in Toronto. And I remember the coaching staff showing a lot of confidence in him, giving him more and more chances. But it didn't work out for him, as it didn't for a lot of goalies who came into Toronto during that era. And just like a what if, to me, Jonathan Bernier falls in the category of Toronto Maple Leafs what ifs.
And real quick, Lepore, the one thing I remember most from Jonathan Bernier as a Toronto Maple Leaf is when he didn't know who Nelson Mandela was.
Oh my God.
That was an all-timer, man.
Oh,
when he thought Nelson Mandela was like a famous athlete.
Yeah, I thought he was a player
in Toronto.
Yeah, he's like what he contributed to the game. Like, he just like went off on some rant.
Oh, so funny.
Yeah, he did. I don't know if you remember, he did Hockey Wives too.
Yes, that's right. He did.
Yeah, like, good looking dude. He's got the ink, living in his condo in Toronto.
Jonathan Bernier's fine.
Oh,
he is totally fine.
Yeah, he had his model wife, all that. Yeah, Jonathan Bernier's with his success or lack of success in Toronto, he's doing okay. He was pretty good at life.
Yeah, I mean, even though his Leafs tenure didn't go exactly according to plan or like he would have wished, he's winning at life. That's for sure.
Definitely.
All right, Lepore, we have an announcement to make.
We do. There was a winner of the Mitch Marner jersey giveaway. We're always happy to give away stuff on this show. This time, it's an authentic Toronto Maple Leafs Mitch Marner jersey. And the lucky winner was Austin Dial. Get this, Bruno. Get this. From Kansas.
Love it.
GFP Nation spreading the world. Listeners all the way in like basketball country in Kansas. But Austin, thank you for your submission. And we'll be sending that jersey out to you, man. Wear it proudly.
Awesome. Austin, like Lepore said, man, wear that thing proudly. It's a beautiful, authentic Mitch Marner jersey. Thanks to everybody who entered the jersey giveaway contest. There were a ton of entries. Me and Lepore went through all of them. But once again, congrats to Austin Dial. You're going to really like that Mitch Marner jersey. All right, Lepore, it is time to move on to some hockey talk now. And quickly go over the week that was for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So they had 3 games at home, starting things off on Tuesday against the Blue Jackets. The Leafs came in action in that Tuesday game against the Blue Jackets at 15-3-1 over their last 19 games, which was the best record in the NHL. But there was a lot of news on this Tuesday. Mitch Marner and Rasmus Sandin placed on injured reserve the morning of the game. Marner We found out afterwards out 3 to 4 weeks with a shoulder injury. Suffered in a collision with Jake Muzzin during practice, which isn't ideal. Sandin out 2 to 3 weeks with a lower body injury. He injured his knee in that shit show of a Winnipeg Jets game the week before. And then Travis Dermott also out with a shoulder injury. And then we'll get into this a little bit later. But we also found out that Jason Spezza was suspended 6 games for his knee to the head on Winnipeg Jets defenseman Neil Pionk. So awesome. A lot of news dropping the day of this game. But the Leafs were not fazed by any of it because they won this game 5-4. And Nick Ritchie scored his first goal of the season. So the Leafs followed that up with a Thursday game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Leafs actually got out to a pretty solid start in the first period, I thought, but there were too many giveaways. They were too sloppy. The Lightning ended up coming back, winning 5-3. Steven Stamkos with a 4-point game.
Because of course,
Steven Stamkos, who could have been a Leaf about 5 or 6 years ago, but
who definitely made the wrong decision in Tampa. Like craziness.
Oh, what a terrible decision by Steven Stamkos.
Man,
he only went on to win 2 Stanley Cups.
Sunshine and Stanley Cups. What was he thinking?
Oh, well, but anyway, so Stamkos comes back to burn the buds, and then the Leafs on Saturday night, closing out the week against the Chicago Blackhawks. We finally got a Peter Mrazek sighting, making his first start since October 30th, returning from a groin injury. And he did not look good at the start of the game. He allowed a goal on Chicago's first shot from Jonathan Taves, but he actually settled in, made 31 saves. The Leafs got out to a 4-1 lead. They almost blew it, but they ended up winning the game 5-4. So it was kind of an up and down week, but Lepore, the Leafs won 2 out of 3. They did what they needed to do. Yeah. And I'll turn it to you now. We can track back to that Blue Jackets game at the start of the week. Give me your take, man.
Bruno, I think fans differ in the way of like their expectations for a team. And, you go through phases of a team where like, man, you're looking for just like good efforts or good individual performances. And it's all dependent on where your team is. And when I say where your team is, I'm referring to kind of like where they are on like the trajectory of contenders in whatever league they play in. As of right now, like I went on this show last week and I said that there's not a single team in the NHL that I would be surprised if the Leafs beat in the playoffs. I would give the Leafs at least a 50-50 against any team in the NHL this year. And because of that, I have very high standards for the Leafs, probably higher than I've had in my entire life, if I'm being perfectly honest. This team this week, if you look at it from the outside, they won 2 out of 3. The one game they lost was to the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. Close game, they scored an empty netter. So you can look at it and be like, 2 out of 3, looking good. The Leafs, goodness, that. But that is not the way I feel at all. Like, I think this team played like shit this week. Absolute shit. And because of the talent on their team, they got away with it. And because their power play is going bananas, they got away with it. But this team this week did not look good. Like Keefe, after you talk about how you watch the pressers, Keefe wasn't happy, man. Like Keefe from the outside looking in is not happy with how his team's performing. And like I said, like they in all 3 games, they pissed me off in a different way. And like starting with that Columbus game, you had a game where the Leafs played amazing. They actually played very, very well, but they took their foot off the gas. And I know it's like a cliche thing. You can come back and say, wow, they were winning in the third and Columbus scored 2 late goals. At this point, as to where I am as a Leafs fan and what I expect from this team, that is not good enough. This team had the game in the bag. And I know Domi's goal was with like a second left. So it doesn't really matter. But in terms of like how close the game was or if it was ever in doubt as far as the result goes. But looking at this team, how I look at them currently, it was not good enough. We'll just run through it quickly. Nylander got the Leafs on the board 5 minutes in. And then with 5 minutes left in the period, Michael Bunting took a pass on the left wing, cut in, stopped. And to be honest, I thought he was screwed. I don't know about you, Bruno, but I kind of thought he skated him. Guys, you say, oh, he skates himself into a bad position. He kind of did, and just put it between his legs for the easiest goal of Austin Matthews' career. 2-0 Buds.
I didn't think he had it in him, man.
No.
I did not think he had that play in him, Michael Bunting. That was sick.
And to be fair, Matthews almost kind of fanned on it. Like that would have been like tragically bad for that play to go wasted, especially like Austin
the timing
Matthews.
worked out perfectly, because if they were like half a second off with their timing there's no way that's a goal. But awesome play.
Added to the highlight reel of the Leaf season. And speaking of highlight reels for the Leaf season, Bruno's arms are up in the air. Nick Ritchie scores a goal for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The puck came in front and Ritchie buried it, as any good goal scorer would. 3-0 Leafs. And our boy, who we had a discussion about on this show a couple weeks ago, asking ourselves if he would score a goal this season.
Oh my God, Lepore. Thank God he scored.
Finally gets one.
God.
Yeah.
Like, imagine we were halfway through the season, approaching almost like 50 games in even, and this dude still hadn't scored a goal.
Unbelievable.
Thank God he finally scored.
I was talking to someone about it, like the totality of the signings that Dubas did over the summer. You had Ritchie, who got paid the most. You have Bunting, you have Kampf, you have Kasha, if you want to include Spezza and Simmons in there. But the totality of it, it's ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous the value they're getting out of those guys. It's just so sad how what could have been without that Ritchie contract, right? Like, even something, for example, let's say Ritchie's not in the lineup and you have Ho-Sang. Something as simple as that, like Ho-Sang on league min, like they wouldn't be worse, and you'd free up that cap space. But again, here we are complaining about a team.
Huge, man. If you take Ritchie's money and even Mrazek's money for that,
it's bananas. It's bananas.
You free up, what is that? That's over $5 million you're freeing up. $5.5 million.
$5.5 million.
Imagine what they could have done with that. I mean, again, you're not going to hit on every offseason signing, so you expect every GM in the league to miss on certain players at some point, right? It seemed like Dubas had a pretty clean track record up until the last little while with some of these signings. So whatever. I mean, the Leafs they're dealing with it, even though they're not getting great production from that $5.5 million. They're still finding ways to win.
Yeah, like the Bunting sign was like 2 years at like $950,000.
Oh, absolute steal.
Like that's it's a total joke. So like I said, Leafs go into the second period up 3-0. About halfway through this period, and I mentioned how the Leafs pissed me off a lot this week. They pissed me off a lot with turnovers, and Jake Muzzin had a brutal one. But Jack Campbell, he's given us some big moments so far in this season, but this was probably his best save of the season. Coming across, getting the glove on it, robbing the shooter. What a save by Jack Campbell to keep it a 3-0 lead. But shortly after, Bjorkstrand, who actually was the player who was robbed on that shot, jams in a power play goal 3-1. Shortly after, JT tips one home on that mighty Toronto Maple Leafs power play to make it 4-1. And then right off the face-off, the Leafs make it 5-1. Austin Matthews getting the puck and beating Elvis. I think it was a 5-hole that one to make it 5-1 Leafs going into the third period. I don't know, you listen to 32 Thoughts, Bruno? Because Elvis
I do
was
occasionally.
He did an interview. He was on 32 Thoughts the other day. Great story, man. Great story. Like I became a fan. Like, poor family in Latvia. His mom raised him. Like, he was telling stories about how he used like the same goalie stick 3 years in a row. And then his mom really couldn't afford to keep him playing at that high level. And then he ended up moving to Switzerland to he signed with, I forget which big club over there, and then develop there. But good story, man. Like, you love to hear that.
He's a really
good
goalie. I know
he is good.
He let in 5 goals against the Leafs, but man, he's a great goaltender.
Yeah, no, he definitely earned a fan over here with that interview. Moving to that third period where the Leafs were an absolute fucking disaster. Bjorkstrand scored again to make it 5-2. Corrali scored off the rush to make it 5-3. And then Domi scored in the last second of the game to make it 5-4. Leafs outshoot Columbus 42-32. And again, to my point about how this game teetered, I'd love to look it up. This game finished at a Maple Leafs win on Money Puck 52% of the time. But I'd love to see that number after one and after two. After one, I mean, they were up 3-0 and they were absolutely dominating. The shots were 18-9 for the Leafs after a period. So like, good night, this game's over. But I'm not happy with it. Like I said, I'm not happy with it. A 5-4 win. And I'll ask you this, Bruno. We've talked about so much on this show how the Leafs with their underlying numbers and just certain basic stats have been just absolutely crazy. And I mean that in a good way. Are weeks like this something to be concerned about, or is it just sort of like that regression to what's supposed to be normal as far as the sport of hockey goes?
I'm not too concerned, and I'll tell you why. And I know it looks ugly because the Leafs gave up 13 goals in 3 games this past week, and defensively, they were not very good. And before I get to my point, I'll just throw in a quick post-game quote from Sheldon Keefe after the Jackets game. He said, "I didn't like much about the game of any period. Not a good game for us, but a good result."
That's what I was referring to. Yeah, he wasn't happy.
So like you said, he was calling out the team all week. He called them out even after the Lightning game about their turnovers. And then he also called them out after the Blackhawks game. So it wasn't a great week, but here's why I'm not concerned with the Leafs, because I think it's almost to a point in the season now, Lepore. You know, we've reached 1/3 of the way through. They know they're a good team. I think it's just a case of like, they know it's an 82 game season. They know that the only thing that matters for this team, for this fan base, for the city is performing in the playoffs. So I think you're going to have lulls. You're going to have certain points during the season where maybe your foot just isn't on the gas 100%.
A little bit of boredom. Where
if you take a lead, and, you know, we saw that. I mean, we saw that in this Blue Jackets game. We saw the same thing in the Blackhawks game to end the week. I think there's going to be moments where this team goes up 3-4-1. And obviously you don't want it to get to a situation where it's a tie game late in the third period after you have a 3-goal lead. Like, that's unacceptable. But I'm going to give this team a pass because I don't think they care too much. Honestly, at this point of the season, they know they're really good. And I know it sounds terrible to say like the team doesn't care. I think they obviously really care about winning and performing well and winning a Stanley Cup and doing well in the playoffs. But, you know, game 26, 27 of the season against the Columbus Blue Jackets, when you take a lead, it's like you're naturally just kind of going to take your foot off the pedal a little bit, just because, you know, like, okay, we got to pace ourselves. It's a long season. We don't have to be totally locked in defensively every single night, every single week. So that's why I'm going to give the Leafs a little bit of a pass, because for the most part this season, they've been excellent defensively. And I know it was one bad week and they've been trending, you know, sort of in the wrong direction recently, especially from a defensive perspective. But it's a long season, and this team knows that the only thing that matters is performing in the postseason.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think you pointed out last show that Campbell's save percentage was like 9.45. It's like right there. We just knew that was going to go down. But like, to your point, Bruno, about how like this team just kind of chilling right now, and that could be the case. And I'm not making excuses for how they played. Like, I'm mad at the team right now, like I said, but I'm not saying it is an excuse. I'm asking if it is an excuse to not have Marner, Spezza, and Sandin in the lineup for these 3 games. Like, is that the factor? Is that like, are those the factors that change us from like you win playing ugly to like you win easily playing well? Like Mitch Marner, let's be like, I always tell people talk about injuries in this league, like, oh, injuries. I'm like, no. Mitch Marner makes $11 million. You can debate all day long about whether or not he's worth it. But when Mitch Marner is not in the lineup, the Toronto Maple Leafs are playing $11 million under the cap. Like, think about that for a second. And then you throw in Spezza and Sandin, who are both on great deals at the moment, but that's a lot. And again, I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm not saying I'm pointing to that and saying that these are the reasons why the Toronto Maple Leafs did not perform well this week. I'm just saying, I think it's at least a talking point, or it's a debate as to whether or not that is the factor of this team being dominant to not being dominant.
That's totally fair. When you're missing players like that, of that caliber, especially a guy like Mitch Marner, you know, I think back to the Habs series, and I know I've been beating this drum
which Habs series
forever now. Yeah, which Habs series for real? You know, you lose your $11 million captain, it evens the playing field, especially in a short series, right? Now, I will say this: I have been very impressed with how the Leafs have actually played offensively without Mitch Marner. There have been moments where, you know, you wish that Matthews had him on his wing. And listen, Matthews has been fantastic. He's got 16 points in his last 9 games, but the game is just so much easier for Matthews when he has Marner on his wing or when he's playing consistently with William Nylander. So there have been moments, especially this past week, where it felt like Matthews was almost on an island, and he just makes it work because he's Austin Matthews and he's amazing. And you're seeing Michael Bunting playing better, and his chemistry with Matthews has been a lot better recently. But Mitch Marner, man, he does so much for this team.
People forget defensively too, how good he is defensively, both in the way of in his own end and his defensive numbers, because when he's on the ice, the puck's always in the offensive zone. Absolutely.
And he kills penalties too.
Right.
He's essentially the first guy over the boards to kill penalties most of the time. So missing Mitch Marner, it's definitely, it hurts. It definitely hurts. But listen, there's teams across the NHL that are dealing with COVID outbreaks, that are dealing with injuries. So the Leafs certainly aren't the only team. Now, does it suck to not have Marner and to not have Jason Spezza, who's essentially the anchor of the bottom 6 along
I was going to say Captain B, Jason Spezza.
Yeah, like, I mean, Spezza's he's just the best. But yeah, and then when you're missing Rasmus Sandin, who has emerged this season as a very quality defenseman in the NHL, playing alongside Timothy Liljegren or Travis Dermott or whoever for that matter. So it definitely hurts to have some of these guys out of the lineup. But you know what? For the most part, Lepore, I've actually been kind of impressed with how they've responded shorthanded recently.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with that answer. I'll say I'm still angry, but I'm okay with that answer.
I like angry Michael Lepore. We need more angry Lepore.
Doesn't happen too often. Yeah.
It's the holiday season and you don't know what to get as a gift or stocking stuffer? Well, Manscaped has you covered. Manscaped is the leader in men's below the waist grooming, and they have served more than 4 million men worldwide. Get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the code GFP20. Lepore, you can't say enough about these amazing products.
No, you can't, Bruno. And there are just certain things in life that go together perfectly, like peanut butter and jelly, burgers and fries, Wayne and Mario in the 87 Canada Cup. But this Christmas, added to the list with the body wash and the 2-in-1. These things are awesome. They both smell great. They feel amazing. And like I said, they go perfectly together. So why not shove it in one of your loved ones' stockings?
Love it, Lepore. The body wash and shampoo, you can't go wrong. You got the Lawnmower 4.0, so many more awesome products. All you got to do is head to manscaped.com and use the promo code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping. So go there, get those gifts for the men in your life who need it most, and use the promo code GFP20 at manscaped.com. All right, buddy, let's move on and talk about this Jason Spezza suspension.
Oh,
because that game against the Jets was an absolute shit show, and the refs clearly could have handled it better, because if the refs had actually done their jobs, I don't think Jason Spezza comes in like he's Ed Reed coming over the middle, trying to drill a wide receiver. Like that was, I mean, it was a bad knee to the head of Neil Pionk. So just to take everyone back to what happened there. So obviously Pionk goes knee on knee with Rasmus Sandin, who we now know is out 2 to 3 weeks with a knee injury.
Thank God, only 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness. Jason Spezza responds, like I said, like a free safety coming over the middle, just torpedoes himself at Neil Pionk, knee to the head. And obviously that was in response to what Pionk had done to Rasmus Sandin. So then we found out afterwards, Pionk was suspended 2 games for his knee on knee hit with Sandin, but Spezza suspended 6 games, Lepore, for that hit to Neil Pionk. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he has never been suspended.
That's right.
In his NHL career.
Jason, like 1,200 plus games, never been suspended.
Unbelievable. So what's your take on that situation? and the 6-game suspension handed down to Jason Spezza.
This one's loaded, Bruno. Like, I'll listen to a lot of different opinions about the suspension itself and just the complete situation of it all. The suspension itself, like if we were looking at it black and white, what Jason Spezza did was fucking mad, bro. Like that's a suspension. And we can debate 3, 4, 5, 6 games, whatever. Had someone shown me that and not shown me any buildup, and that's what the league has to do, or for that matter, because there was buildup, they were going to suspend him even more because it's like, oh, it's retaliatory. So meaning it was planned on Spezza's side. If someone showed me that and said, this is a 6-game suspension, I would have said, okay, like, what are you going to say? He tried to kill someone, and then the Pionk went down, and you can say that, Spezza would have got him high had he not go down, but Spezza didn't really resist that knee back or kind of like lift his body so he'd avoid him. So he's going to get suspended. But where people get pissed off here is that never should have happened in the first place. And it brings me back to, and again, not justifying it, it brings me back to the Kadri suspensions versus the Bruins, where Kadri did things that were psychotic and deserved suspension. But if the game is called before that point, the game does not boil over, and incidents like this don't happen. What Pierre-Luc Dubois did to Austin Matthews to not get called was absolutely crazy.
Complete
crazy
joke.
Like I always wonder, and again, we don't see it because I know the league doesn't want to embarrass referees, but there must be conferences with like team bodies and officiating groups. It must happen where they point to their games and things they liked and didn't like. I'm picturing the Toronto Maple Leafs, Keefe, Shanahan, Dubas on a Zoom call with whatever body or whoever would represent the referees, showing them that and being like, there was no penalty. There was no penalty. Or sorry, it was coincidentals. They gave coincidental penalties. My bad. Like maybe even worse. So it's that whole thing about how poorly the game is sometimes officiated. And it's a contact sport. It's a vicious sport. It's a sport that makes these players angry. And that's what we love about it. But when things cross the line and the game is not controlled, like you always hear the saying, you hear it often in soccer, like the referee lost control of the match. And to me, that's what happened here. And that's happened in those Bruins games when Kadri got suspended. The referee lost control. It boiled over. And you had this happen. And these are professional athletes with a lot of testosterone, and they're going to go absolutely bonkers. Spezza fully deserves the 6-game suspension. But I think this is just one of those examples where the league and the referees have to look at it and be like, how could this have been prevented? Most rules are created to protect the players. So then call the game in a way that protects the players. And you do that by not allowing the game to boil over. So players absolutely lose their mind. They are human. And again, that's not me justifying it. That's just saying, like, when I see that, yeah, the guy should get suspended. Am I surprised a player reacted like that? No, not at all.
You nailed it, man. And just looking at the act itself, Jason Spezza absolutely deserved a suspension. And now you can say he didn't deserve 6 games. Maybe he deserved 4 or 5 games, whatever. But it's like I said, the dude comes flying in with his knee and drills Pionk in the head.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just isolating it and looking at that act by itself, that was terrible. That is a suspendable offense. It deserves a lengthier suspension. I don't think there was any way Spezza was going to get away with a 1 or 2 game suspension. And I know he's got a clean track record, but that was terrible. But like you said, Lepore, the reason it got to that point and the reason Jason Spezza lost his shit and decided to, like I said, be Ed Reed in his prime is because the refs lost control of the game. Like Austin Matthews is getting mugged from behind by Pierre-Luc Dubois. Like that was one of the most egregious things I've ever seen. There's a ref like standing right there. I don't know how close the ref was to them.
Hockey.
But there was a ref who clearly saw what happened in that moment to Austin Matthews. What is Matthews supposed to do there? He's like on the ice. There's nothing he can do. He's getting like, it's like almost like an MMA battle where Dubois has him, locked from behind and there was no call. Like, are you kidding me? So that set the tone for everything. So that's the thing. Jason Spezza, yes, he deserved a lengthier suspension than, like I said, the people who thought he was going to get away with 1 or 2 games, but that would have never happened if the refs had taken control of this game and not let it get out of hand. And it's as simple as that.
Before we move on, Bruno, I'll ask you this. And I think this is where a lot of people have a problem with the 6 games. Had I shown you the Spezza incident and then showed you the Lemieux incident where he bit Tkachuk's finger off and there was blood everywhere, which one of those would you have said deserved a greater suspension?
I saw a lot of people on Twitter who were up in arms saying Spezza, got 6 games and Lemieux bit off someone's hand. And I'm going to be honest, I think Spezza's was worse.
Okay.
I really do, because, man, like, you're going knee to the head at full speed. And I get it. What Lemieux did was egregious. Okay. You shouldn't be biting dudes on the ice. Like, that's pathetic and that's awful. But when you're going knee to the head at full speed, man, that could end very, very poorly. So I'm going to admit it. I think what Spezza did was worse than Brendan Lemieux, as pathetic and disgusting as that was.
I think where I lie with it is, again, like, to me, if you would have shown me the Spezza one and told me 6 games, I would have said, yeah, okay. I think with Lemieux, like 2.
That's fair. He should have got more.
Yeah,
he should have got
maybe
more
4. If you would have told me maybe 4 and 6 or 5 and no, but 2, like that, 3 times the suspension. And Spezza had never been suspended in 1,200 games, and Lemieux's a repeat offender. Like, that's not a good look. And at the end of the day, that's what frustrates people, both in the way of officiating in this league, as well as suspensions, inconsistency. If it's the same all the time and it's the same in every incident, like, well, it's okay. You move on. It is what it is. It's just, what's frustrating is that.
Yeah, that's the bigger problem. The Department of Player Safety, George Peros, and all the other people that are involved in that, it's just been so inconsistent.
George Peros, speaking of people who are on Hockey Wives.
Yeah, that's another guy. Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, it's a disaster, honestly, with the Department of Player Safety, because you just never know. You literally never know. Like, it's like you said, Lepore, one terrible thing happens. It's only 2 games, and then something similar happens in the next game, and it's a 5 or 6 game suspension. So I think the Department of Player Safety has got to be better. They got to find a way to be more consistent. But at the end of the day, Spezza is going to sit this out. He deserved a suspension, and the Leafs have been doing a pretty solid job without him in the lineup so far. So we will all be happy when Jason Spezza makes his return. All right, Lepore, let's move on to the Leafs' second game of the week against the Lightning. The Leafs pretty much dominated the shot count, at least through the first couple of periods. Yep. They actually played a really good game, I thought, especially in the first period. I thought they dominated Tampa, but then you look at the scoreboard and you're like, what the hell? How are the Leafs not up 4-1 at this point? So it was a frustrating game. There were too many turnovers, and then Steven Stamkos, who a lot of people thought should have taken that Canadian Tire sponsorship.
Remember that whole thing? They were in the meeting and all that. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
It just shows on where we were. We offered more money, sponsorship deals, probably the captaincy. Nope. I'm good.
The Leafs probably offered Steven Stamkos the world.
Oh my
in
God.
That free agent meeting back when he decided to re-sign with the Tampa Bay Lightning, but he decided to have a 4-point game. Andre Palat, 3 points, and Tampa coming out of Toronto, Lepore, with a 5-3 victory.
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, 3 games this week. The Leafs pissed me off 3 different ways. With this game, like you said, the Leafs played amazing. You know what? As far as the underlying numbers go, and throw in the fact that they were playing the Tampa Bay Lightning, this may have been the Leafs' best game of the season as far as that goes. But when you play that well over the course of the game, but you make huge mistakes, turning the puck over, giving opportunities to a team as lethal as the Tampa Bay Lightning, throw it all out the window. It doesn't matter. And it brings me back to like the Jake Gardner days, where like the geeks on Twitter, and I'm an advanced stats guy, would brag, oh, Jake Gardner takes too much shit. His underlying numbers are amazing. He's a very consistent player. Yeah, but if there's like a blasphemous error every couple of games that cost the Leafs points, it doesn't matter. I don't want it. I guess that's the way to sum it up. I don't want it. And that's how the Leafs played in this game. Just ugly, but we'll get to it. The Leafs, after, like you said, the Leafs actually had a good start. They scored on the power play. This lethal Toronto Maple Leafs power play again makes it 1-0. It was Kasha banged it in. And then midway through the period, there was a scramble in front. Vasilevsky, who's like just incredible.
He's absurd.
Like, yeah, like it's honest. I don't know, man. Like, I think we're getting into the point where he's getting on that like all-time list.
The all-time list. Yeah. I'm
like
right there with you, man.
It's like when I'm watching a game that he's playing, he's different. Almost kind of like Hasek back in the day. It was like, this guy is just different and better than everybody else. But like, he made an amazing save and the puck kind of looped over and hit the crossbar. So it stayed out. And the Leafs, I mean, who knows how this would have went had they gone up 2-0, but that wasn't the case. But then Bellemare scored for Tampa off a Muzzin turnover. That was turnover number 1 for the Leafs.
Man, Muzzin and Hall, for that matter, the entire season, they've just not been on their game.
Yeah, they're not at their best. Like they have spurts, but I mean, Hall, like, we kind of like step back for a second and ask yourself how we looked at Justin Hall last season compared to this season. Night and day, man.
This is why I lost at Lepore when they protected Justin Hall from Seattle in the expansion draft. I'm like, what the fuck is this team doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're protecting Justin. I get it. He's a right shot defenseman and he's big and he's tall and he's all that, right? All these right shot defensemen are getting paid like they're Connor McDavid in the offseason. And the Leafs thought they had this real asset, $2 million a year. But my goodness, I mean, he's just not very good. It's really as simple as that.
We talk about, again, like little moves that would make a difference to this team as well as they are playing. They expose Hall, keep Jared McCann, and don't sign Nick Ritchie.
There you go.
Done. Like, done. But
signed, sealed, delivered.
Exactly. Bring home the cup, boys. As you mentioned, Steven Stamkos had a hell of a game. He put the Lightning up 2-1 on an absolute blast. I think the puck was even slightly elevated, and he was able to kind of just clip it in the perfect spot to make it 2-1. With 7 seconds left in the period, Matthews just threw the puck across the ice, and Nylander turned and fired it. It found its way in. So the Leafs go into the second period tied at 2. I actually thought Nylander played like shit in this game. Like, he got that goal. It was kind of a fluky goal. And based on the way he's played this season, I feel kind of awkward criticizing him. But I thought it was definitely one of his worst games of the season. Moving on to the second, speaking of Nylander, he made a very bad pass to the center of the ice. Muzzin kind of lost track of it. So whoever you want to blame, Nylander or Muzzin. But Palat went in, scored to give Tampa Bay another goal. And then Brody, man, the puck came around the boards, and Brody, kind of like Muzzin did earlier, just lost track of it.
Very un-Brody-like.
Oh, incredible. Like the Halls, the Muzzins, like you said, like those ones you kind of expect here and there. Even like the Riley ones are like Brody, bro.
And it's like, please don't happen to TJ Brody too. Like, God. That's the last guy that I'd expect to turn the puck over. Seriously, if you're thinking of one defenseman on the Leafs D-core who's never going to turn over the puck, the first guy that comes to mind is TJ Brody. As much as I love Morgan Riley, and he makes a hell of a lot of great plays, TJ Brody's like the one steady presence on the blue line. So when stuff like that is happening to him, you know it's not your night.
Yeah, Brody to me is like that Seinfeld reference of like George Costanza not showing off, not falling behind, just like always in that meaty part of the curve that you're happy with. But like, to the point I made about this game and how the Leafs played. So that's the end of the second period. And the Leafs are down 4-2. So here you have the Leafs playing the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they're out shooting them 27-18. And they're down by 2 goals. And maybe the Leafs got away with these mistakes or the sloppiness overall playing against Columbus and Chicago. But it shows you, like, against Tampa Bay or the teams like Tampa Bay, you have to be perfect. You have to be perfect to have a chance, let alone to win. So if you're giving the Lightning goals, you're not going to win. So, like, again, these underlying numbers, how good the Leafs look, the shot count, 27-18, you're down 2 goals because you're sloppy. You have occasional brain farts and you mess it all up. in the third period, the Leafs got the string of chances, one from Tavares, one from Nylander, one from Kerfoot, and Kasha finally scored after a shot from Muzzin on the rebound. And so midway through the period, the Leafs were able to cut it to 1, but Palat scored the empty netter to make it 5-3. Final shot count in this game, okay? And like this is what I was referring to earlier. Final shot count, 38-27 in favor of the Leafs. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, playing the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champions, according to Money Puck, with expected goals, would have won this game 75% of the time. Crazy. And
Unreal.
To be fair, it's not even one of those games where like Vasilevsky was Vasilevsky, but it's not like, okay, he just stole the game. Like that's not how I saw it. It was just the Leafs played an incredible game, except for those few moments where it's like, well, everything you've done is getting thrown out the window because you're making elementary mistakes.
And if there's anything Leaf fans are going to be concerned about, are going to be scared about heading into the playoffs, it's stuff like this that we saw in this Lightning game, because it takes me back, and I keep going back to the Habs series.
Sorry, what series?
Again, yeah, it never happened. It never happened. Let's just get it out of our memories. But no, in all seriousness, you go back to that Habs series, it was stupid mistakes that cost the Leafs. It seemed like game after game, besides the games they won, it seemed like every game Montreal won in that series, it was some stupid turnover, whether it was Alex Galchenyuk, Travis Dermott, allowing Paul Byron to score a shorthanded breakaway goal. It's shit like that that gets people scared about this hockey team. It's like, are they still going to have these breakdowns, these mental lapses at the worst times? Because that's what scares me as a Leafs fan. You know, you see them play so well, and the underlying numbers show that they would have won that game 75% of the time. They outshot Tampa, they outchanced them, all that stuff. But when you're making stupid decisions, when it's a tie game, when it's a 1-goal game, and you're giving the puck away, it's not going to fly against a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's not going to fly against other teams like the Tampa Bay Lightning. When you're playing, you know, those, let's call them the 6 to 8, you know, elite teams in the NHL that have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. When you're making errors like this that we saw in this Tampa game, you're going to get burned and you're just not going to win. And it's as simple as that. And those are the things the Leafs need to clean up. And again, going back to my original point, how, you know, we're kind of in the middle of the season here. You know, a random game on a Thursday night. Do the Leafs totally care about some of these games? You know, you can bring up that point, but at the end of the day, you want to see them clean up some of the shit that we saw, especially with those giveaways against Tampa.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, to what you're saying, and I 100% agree with it, is we're looking forward to the playoffs here, and this is what scares the shit out of us, because we're to the point now, we've seen enough of this team, and we go over the underlying numbers about every single Leafs game on this show. We're never surprised that they're, you know, thoroughly outplaying teams, even good teams. So what that tells you is that, well, the Leafs aren't going to go undefeated. So when they do lose these games, it's because of shit like this, and you're going to lose games along the way. But when it's this blatant, alarm bells go off, man. It makes you really, really nervous, because go back to that Montreal series, man. Again, gross, but go back to that Montreal series, go over all of Montreal's goals. I swear, like 90% of them were Leafs mistakes, either in the offensive or defensive zone. Either the Leafs had an offensive zone turnover and the Habs came flying back the other way, or there was a mistake made in the Leafs end. Like the Montreal Canadiens barely scored a goal in this series that wasn't essentially the complete fault of a Toronto Maple Leafs player. So I say often, we're insecure. We have a lot of fear. So, I mean, seasons aren't going to be perfect. It's been a good season so far, but this game, and this week for that matter, just gave us a reminder of what this team can be when they're at their worst.
I'm looking forward to the playoffs, Lepore. If the playoffs started today, it would be Leafs and Lightning in the first round.
I 1,000% noticed that.
And the Leafs would, of course, have home ice advantage, but would that even matter against this Tampa Bay Lightning team?
Yeah, because Tampa gives a shit that they got to go on the road, right?
And another thing we should mention, Lepore, the Leafs were dealing with injuries and suspensions and all that. Tampa in this game, no Braden Point, no Nikita Kucherov, and no Anthony Cirelli.
That's it.
3 of their most important offensive players. And Cirelli, he's a great two-way player. They're all great two-way players, those 3.
Mhm.
But it just goes to show, man, this Lightning team, they're the real deal. And you meet them in the first round of the playoffs. I mean, I'd be pretty terrified.
Yeah, let's not even talk about it, Bruno. Like, let's not project where this is all going to end.
Let's not throw those vibes out there.
But I have thought genuinely that based on how it's going to go, and this has happened in seasons past in the National Hockey League, the Leafs are probably be better off, or maybe better off, finishing 4th in the division, getting a wild card, than ending up in a 2-3. Because you're going to get
honestly, you're not wrong.
Yeah, because I'd be shocked if the Lightning don't finish in 2 or 3. So there you go. Like, I remember there was a few years ago where in the Metro, the Rangers finished 4th, and it totally benefited them because they avoided Pittsburgh and Washington in the first 2 rounds, or they would have had they not lost to Ottawa. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how it unfolds. No excuses, right? No excuses in Leaf land.
Yeah, we'll deal with all that when the playoffs come. Until then, Leafs fans will just be praying that they don't play the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round, because that would be one of the most terrifying things I think any of us have ever seen.
Yeah, hopefully some aliens invade the world and just kidnap the Tampa Bay Lightning before the playoffs.
After all these first round embarrassments, to have to now face Tampa in the first round when you can't get over the hump. Can you imagine?
And then it's that thing. It will be that thing of, like, let's say they lose to Tampa in 7, or like a hard 6 games. It's like major changes have to be. They have to be made? No, they lost to Tampa. So here we are getting ahead of ourselves, like predicting where the Leafs will end up, who they'll play, and how they'll lose. But it's just funny. Like, I can already see it. Like, as a Leafs fan, I can already see like those debates. If that was,
God, Lepore, it's gonna happen, man.
100% is gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. But like you said, let's deal with that when the time comes. We don't want to throw those bad vibes out into the universe for the Leafs.
Yeah,
Lepore, that's for sure. Let's move on to the third and final game of the week.
Sure.
Against the Chicago Blackhawks. So like I mentioned earlier in the show, we finally had a Peter Mrazek signing. It felt like he wasn't even on this team.
Yeah.
Because the guy's only played like 3 or 4 games. He hadn't played since October 30th, making his return from a groin injury. And you go, here we go again. He allows a goal on the first shot of the game for the Blackhawks. And of course, it's Jonathan Toews, who has just 2 goals in 27 games this season. He's been awful this season, Jonathan Toews.
Not bad, 2 goals.
2 goals in 27 games. Just egregious. But the Leafs scored 4 unanswered goals to take a 4-1 lead. Then the Blackhawks scored 3 unanswered goals to tie it at 4 in the third. And then David Kampf had to rescue the Leafs. And you're just shaking your head. How the hell did this happen, Lepore? I mean, what another roller coaster of a game. But hey, the Leafs still won 5-4. But man, it was rough.
Yeah, the suits sit. I almost said the ACC. The suits sitting at Scotiabank Arena definitely got their money's worth from this one. It was an exciting one. To be fair, like Mrazek, like he gets scored on that first shot, like. He totally got exposed, and it was a good shot. Like, Taser put in a good shot there. So 1-0 Hawks early on. The Leafs caught a break. Tavares scored that goal in the PP. Weak goal on Lankinen. And to be fair, again, like, let's shit on the Leafs some more. Yeah, they were able to pull through this game, but Lankinen was terrible. Like, he was absolutely terrible for Chicago. Bad. So 1-1 at that point. And then there was that great play with Nylander and Tavares, where a Nylander put it around to JT, threw it in front. Nylander scored. And if you read the lips of Wee Willie Nylander, he said, what a fucking play. So good to see players having a good time. A little later, again, that mighty Toronto Maple Leafs power play scoring. It was Matthews this time, just banging one in to make it 3-1. And moving forward to the second period, you mentioned the Leafs went up 4-1. Engvall, again, this was a bad one. Like, he just came around and like just beat Lankinen, who like went off his post. So 3-goal lead for the Leafs. Murphy scored through a crowd for Chicago to make it 4-2. Now, again, how I said this game or these games this week pissed me off in different ways. The first one with the Leafs playing well and just totally collapsing in the third. And then with the Lightning game playing well and just making huge mistakes. So you're your performance from the totality of it doesn't matter because of those bad moments. In this game, I just thought the Leafs played like shit. Like absolutely brutal. Bruno, the shots in the second period were 14-3 for Chicago. 14-3, maybe the worst period the Leafs have had all season. You're playing a bad Chicago team and you get outshot that badly on home ice. That's fucking terrible, bro. That's terrible. So lucky enough for them, they're able to still have a 2-goal lead going into the third, but Kubalik scored early to make it 4-3 in the third, just to give us a little bit of nerves. And then McCabe ties it, another shot that went through a crowd. So here you go, 4-4, and you can already see it, like this Leafs collapse coming. But with a minute 20 left, for the first time in like 54 years, the Toronto Maple Leafs gotta bounce. It is possible, ladies and gentlemen. The Toronto Maple Leafs can get bounce. The puck rimmed around, hit a stanchion. I remember Don Cherry on the Rock'em Sock'ems used to have like a segment of these, of like where the goalie goes around, the puck hits the stanchion and pops out. And Kampf took a whack at the puck, was able to close the deal. 5-4 Leafs. Final shot count in this one, again, to point to how the Leafs actually played beyond getting the result. Outshot by the Chicago Blackhawks on home ice, 35-26. And according to Money Puck, the Hawks would have won this game 55% of the time based on the simulations. So Leafs pulling out wins because of talent and some bad goaltending and because of some luck. Let's call it how it is, but not stuff Leafs fans, I think, should be happy about. And again, we're spoiled now. We can win games and still be bothered by it, but that's where we are. And that's where this team's put us. So we're going to point to it.
Yeah, it was not a good way to end the week. Even though they won and they got a bounce finally, like you said, you never see that happen. The puck perfectly bounces off the glass, off the boards, right to David Kampf, who burns his old team and scores the game-winning goal. But man, oh man, this team right now, their power play has been carrying them over this last little stretch. Lepore, looking at the
Is it number one? Is it number one in the league right now?
They are now number 2 in the NHL.
Okay.
At over a 30% clip. The only 2 teams, Lepore, in the NHL right now who have a power play above 30% are the Edmonton Oilers and the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Edmonton Oilers, I should add, have now lost 5 games in a row. Just want to throw that in there.
Slide it in there, Bruno.
Just slide it in there for Oilers Nation. Yeah. 5 straight losses. McDavid and Draisaitl held off the score sheet on home ice on Saturday night against the Carolina Hurricanes.
I don't know, man. With this slump, does McDavid still make Canada?
Oh, man, that's going to be a close call.
Debatable.
But, yes, as we all know, Connor McDavid has already been named to the Canadian Olympic team, and he is literally Jesus on skates. But yeah, the Edmonton Oilers, when McDavid and Draisaitl aren't at their best, this is what we get. But anyway, we could we'll talk about the Edmonton Oilers another day. But going back to the Leafs,
sure we will,
for a second, Lepore. Yeah, man, it almost felt like this team is just like, all right, we're going on a Western Canadian road trip next week. The holiday break is coming up. Like, we're up 4-1 here on home ice against this shitty Blackhawks team. Like, let's just mail it in. And it almost burned them, because when Chicago tied the game at 4 and you just felt like it was going to go to overtime, and you're like, here we go. Patrick Kane is going to score the OT winner and this is going to end poorly. But thank God they got that bounce and Kampf was able to burn his former team. And one thing I should mention, if you go back to that first game against Chicago, it was Kampf who scored the game-tying goal.
He did.
Which then led to, I believe it was Nylander who scored the overtime winner.
It was
and
Nylander,
that's what started this incredible run the Leafs are on. The Leafs 17-4-1 over their last 21 games.
That's a quarter of the season.
17-4-1, the best record in the NHL still since October 27th. And it all started with that Blackhawks win.
David Kampf, what a player, man. What a player. It's funny. When that goal went in, I got a text from my buddy right away who's a Leaf fan. And he's like, bet my house Chicago scores, because no way the Leafs are winning a game like this with just like this like God-given bounce. But again, we've been taught it is possible. It is possible for the Leafs to get some fortune, and we will take it because, like I said, it's been 54 years since we got a bounce. So when one comes our way, we will be happy.
Yeah, when things like that happen, you got to take that, especially as a Leafs fan and all the shit that we have endured over the last number of years. Finally, something good happened. Lepore, is there anything else you want to get off your chest about this game or the Leafs, or should we move on to our next topic?
Nah, after releasing all that anger, I'm pretty tired. So let's move on to calmer things.
All right, let's do it. So now that we have the Leafs out of the way, like I said, second place in the Atlantic Division, everything is fine and dandy at the moment. There have been some issues, obviously, like we talked about with defensive play, but things are okay. Yeah. But now, Lepore, it is time to talk about Trevor Zegras.
Yes.
This kid is unbelievable. Yeah. He pulled off one of the plays of the year with Sonny Milano last week, flipping the puck from behind the net to Sonny Milano, who batted it out of midair. It was one of the plays of the year, one of the goals sports of the year.
Yeah.
I have never seen anything like that. There was a clip floating around of Pavel Datsyuk who tried it. I don't know, maybe it was like 10, 12 years ago or whatever, where he flipped the puck over the net, but it didn't result in a goal.
Did Datsyuk scoop it though, or did he just kind of flip it over?
He may have scooped it, but he either way, he grabbed the puck and he flipped it over the net. And I think he tried a similar play.
Yeah,
and I believe the NHL tweeted it out, or they put out a video on Instagram. They said Datsyuk walked so Zegras could run.
Okay.
So it was pretty cool to see that move from Datsyuk as well. But I had never seen anything like that pulled off in an NHL game. It was incredible. I mean, I was blown away. But John Tortorella,
here we go,
the crab that he is, who is now working as an analyst for ESPN, had the audacity, Lepore, to say that play from Zegras and Milano wasn't good for the game.
Yeah.
And just to go over a couple of quotes real quick from Tortorella, he said, I'll find the best quote here. So he said, I'm not so sure when he was asked if it was good for the game. And again, I'm not trying to be a fool here, but I'm just not so sure it's great for the game. If you did that back in 2000, the late 90s, you'd get your head taken off. It's cool. It's cool to watch and all that, but I'm not so sure it's good for the game. And this created an absolute shitstorm on social media. And people were furious. I mean, I'm pretty furious too, because I think that is a complete clown take from John Tortorella. But Lepore,
is he trolling?
I'll ask you that, Lepore. Like, do you think this was John Tortorella being John Tortorella and trolling because he's an analyst for ESPN and he's trying to stir the pot for ratings and for clicks and things like that?
I think so. Like Tortorella, like fits the character of that old school hockey man. But if I'll say it this way, I think either he was trolling, or if he does really feel this way, this guy needs to be blasted into fucking space as far as any sector of hockey goes, because what he said was blasphemous.
I think he meant it, Lepore.
You really think he does?
I think he genuinely meant it. Like, just think about his track record, right? Just the way that his teams play, how he almost like suppresses star talent in a way. And not to say like, oh, if you're a star player, like I'm not going to let you do anything and I'm not going to let you score goals and things like that. But it's always team first, defensive structure first. I'm not going to play my stars, 22, 23 minutes a game. If they're not playing within my system, within the system that I have all my teams play throughout my career, then it's not going to work here. He runs Pierre-Luc Dubois out of town. Patrick Laine, I don't think he's happy right now as a Columbus Blue Jacket. And again, he's obviously John Tortorella is gone, but it was rough, man. When he was still there and Patrick Laine came in, it seemed like Patrick Laine was like a shell of what he was in Winnipeg when he was potting 30 to 40 goals a season. And I get it. I get that John Tortorella's won a cup with the Tampa Bay Lightning, but just based on his track record and the way that he has his teams play and the way that he treats, I guess, the star players and doesn't let them, I guess, do the things that you maybe see McDavid and Draisaitl or Matthews, or point to any star, McKinnon, how they're playing 23 minutes a game and the coach is putting them out in every situation, right? So that's why I believe that Tortorella was genuine with these comments. And I'm concerned. Like, if I'm another team, Lepore, there's no way I'm looking at hiring this guy as my next head coach.
Oh, if he feels this way, actually, he's done as a coach. And if he does get an opportunity, the team that hires him gets what they deserve. Because to not like what happened, like how I see it is, so I help coach my my nephew's hockey team. So the next practice after that happened, what are all these kids doing? They're talking about it. They're like, "Oh, did you see what?" Like, they probably, to be fair, like, they're 9. They probably didn't even know who Trevor Zegras was, like this rookie for the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. Now they all know him. And then in practice, what are they doing? They're trying it. Like, they're laughing, trying it, and you're going to see it now. These kids are going to be doing this stuff. And where the NHL fails, I think where the NHL truly fails compared to other leagues is the NHL has its hardcores, but having a fan base, as far as the league goes, is not just about hardcores. Like, there's casual fans. There's fans who just kind of get revved up for the playoffs, or they check in to scores here and there, or they just like exciting highlights. That's what that moment from Zegras, like, that's what that does. It causes a buzz. Like you said, one of the plays of the year in hockey, that's one of the plays of the year in sports. Legit. And even for Milano to bat it out of the air, like, almost thank God he did, or else it would have got wasted. But like, what a play. And like, I'll point to Formula One, man. Like, what they've done recently, Formula One kind of had like its clique of fans, and as in Canada, the United States goes, like, obviously in Europe, it's ginormous. But like, Formula One had its group of fans, its hardcores, but they've done such a good job, both with the Netflix documentary and pushing their individual stars over the last couple of years, that there's kind of casual Formula One fans now. Like, you see it on the highlights of SportsCenter and them talking about it on Sportsnet, and even like walking around, like, I'm noticing people wearing the swag. You see people with like Verstappen hats and like the Hamilton t-shirts and all that stuff. Like the Ferrari stuff's always around, but you know what I'm trying to say. But that's where the league has failed in the past, as far as I'm concerned. And like I said, it's plays like that that put that casual fan to the next level, or turns the non-fan into a fan. There's that kid in the US who doesn't know, for the most part, what hockey is, who turns on the TV and sees that play and just goes, huh, cool. And now he's interested. Maybe now he's a Trevor Zegras fan. Maybe now he's a Ducks fan. Like, it's one of those things. And to shit on it is just ridiculous. To his point, though, and before I finish, I do remember Gilmore trying it. Like, in his day, he tried to flip it over, and he took a pretty hard fucking cross check for trying to do it. So Torts was right on that end, but the game has changed. The game needs help. They got this ESPN contract, Torts. Come on. And even the whole thing of like the ignorance, there's no such thing as bad publicity. So even if your take is that, that's bad for the game, well, it got people talking about the game, having a debate over it. So he's just wrong. And with a last name like Tortorella, him being a Paisano makes it even more disappointing.
Yeah, for real, man. Torts, you failed us. You failed us with this take. But no, you said it, Lepore. I think either way, ESPN is happy, because if John Tortorella just had the take that 99% of the hockey world had, like, oh my God, that play was incredible, it's great for the game. Exactly. It would have got no clicks. Would have been like, all right, that's the same take that we all have. But because he went against the grain and he was contrarian, and as egregious as I thought his opinion on this play was, it's great for ESPN because he went viral after that. But just to put a bow on it, Lepore, I mean, you said it best. This is what we need in the game. You got to attract new fans, especially when you have this new television deal with ESPN, and you want to take the game to the next level in the United States, and you have a young American star like Trevor Zegras and Sonny Milano, who I also believe is American, and they pull off a play like that. I mean, that was just outrageous. Yeah. And you saw videos circulating all over social media, like you mentioned, Lepore, kids in minor hockey across North America trying this stuff. I think I even saw a couple of videos from Europe as well. Like, everyone was trying the Zegras Milano move. the day after that goal was scored. So, yeah, I mean, John Tortorella, that was a clown take. Simple as that.
Way off.
Lepore, before we wrap up this podcast, let's have a quick conversation about the Olympics.
Yeah.
And not about the rosters. And believe me and Lepore are going to have a fun show going over the Canadian roster and some of the other rosters. But is it even going to get to that point, Lepore? Because news came out over the last couple of days that if you test positive while in Beijing, you will have to quarantine for 21 days to up to 5 weeks. So from 3 to 5 weeks, you could be stuck in Beijing instead of rejoining your team in the National Hockey League, trying to fight for a playoff spot, trying to gear up for the playoffs. This could be bad, Lepore, especially for the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are going to have plenty of guys on the team going to the Olympics. So what's your take on this? Like, do you think the NHL players should pull out at this point?
You know what, Bruno? This is like anti-fan, but I think they should. Like, as much as I want to see an Olympic tournament, what team or what player for that matter is going to be willing to take that kind of risk? Like you mentioned the Leafs, Campbell's probably going to be on USA. Austin Matthews will be on USA. Marner, Tavares, Riley, all have a shot at Canada. Nylander will be on Sweden. Kasha, they'll be on their respected Olympic teams. That's a huge gamble, man. It's a huge gamble, especially if there's an outbreak. What happens if there's a Team Canada outbreak and like all of Team Canada is stuck in Beijing, or Team USA, Team Sweden, Team Russia, whatever, take your pick. So there's just so much risk. And I've always wanted to be a fly on the wall when these Olympic discussions happen in the boardrooms of the teams, because they must fucking hate it. Like even beyond it being in Beijing and COVID and all that, I'll say it again. I'm a Leaf fan. Think of if you're the Leafs, you want your players going to this tournament, like burning their legs, risking injury for what? And it can derail your season. Something can happen. Like I've said it before, like as far as the Sens go, a lot of people point to the year they lost to the Devils in the conference finals in Game 7 in the early 2000s, as well as them making the Stanley Cup final in 2007 as like their best opportunities to win. I actually think their best opportunity to win was in 2006, because a lot of people forget they picked up Hasek that offseason, like answered all the goaltending questions, and they were playing incredible. He was giving them amazing goaltending, and then he got hurt at the Olympics. And they still had a great season, but then they had Emery, and Emery had a decent NHL career, but he's not Dominic Hasek. And I really do think like that may have cost the Ottawa Senators the Stanley Cup. So teams can't like it. And then you throw in this, it's all the way in Beijing. Let's say it, like there's political issues over there. We're dealing with COVID. This rule comes in. It's hard, man. Like if I was a betting man right now, I would say no. Like even the players, like that risk. I know they all want to play in the Olympics and like win a gold medal for their country, but are you willing to risk that? I don't know, man. And I'm sure for sure some players aren't. Like that's not even a talking point. Like we can debate about how many, but too many risks, man. And if I had to bet right now, I don't think we're going to the Olympics.
I agree. Hearing this news from Chris Johnston, and then to also know that the players in the league have until January 10th to withdraw without financial penalties. So I think they can go past that deadline, but then there will be financial penalties involved. But you said it, man.
Who pays that?
I'm not exactly sure, but I mean, I'm sure the NHL is going to have to fork out, I don't know how much money.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
It would cost them, but yeah. So, I mean, I'm assuming they'd want to avoid that, but even thinking about Edmonton, for example, like imagine McDavid has to quarantine there, or Draisaitl playing for, like, imagine losing Draisaitl for 4 or 5 weeks. Like that's a disaster. I mean, go across the board for any team, right? Same thing with like Colorado. If they're going to miss McKinnon or Rantanen on Finland, Gabriel Landeskog, Team Sweden, like, man, oh man, it's a bad situation for everybody involved, especially if you do happen to test positive while in Beijing. And I'm right there with you, Lepore. I do not think it's worth the risk hearing this news. And I think the players probably share the same feelings at this point.
Yeah, I would think so. It sucks. It sucks for the players and for the fans. And we just finished talking about like what grows the game and how to get fans. Olympic tournaments are amazing. And let's say it, like we're trying to get as many American viewers as possible and American fans. That Team USA looks dangerous. So it's one of those things of like USA winning a gold medal. That'd be big for hockey and ratings in the States. But you have to use common sense. Like you have to like put emotion aside and use logic. And as far as I'm concerned anyway, my logic in terms of like what the actual proper decision is they're not going.
Yeah, it almost seems like a no-brainer at this point. As much as, as big as the Olympics are, as much as a lot of these players want to go there and represent their countries and win a medal, it's just really not worth the risk, not only for the players, but for all the NHL teams that are sending these players. It's just too big of a risk. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, that first deadline is January 10th, according to Chris Johnston. But we'll see how that plays out. Lepore, is there anything else you want to get off your chest about the Leafs or anything else before we wrap up episode 45?
No, man, I'm satisfied. But hopefully this week, the Leafs can have some good showings and not only win, but unlike this past week, look good doing it. Let's see it, Leafs.
You said it, Lepore. The Leafs heading out on a Western Canadian road trip starting Tuesday in Edmonton. But that Thursday game in Calgary is postponed, I believe, because the Calgary Flames just had an outbreak where 6 of their players and I believe another staff member tested positive for COVID.
Awesome.
So their games are all canceled, I believe, up until Thursday, the 16th, when they were scheduled to take on the Leafs. But then the Leafs play the Canucks on Saturday night, and then they wrap things up on Sunday in Seattle against the Kraken.
Nice.
Well, that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
But so we're hoping the Leafs can bounce back after they were leaking a little bit defensively this past week.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That is going to do it for episode 45 of the Gluttons for Punishment podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, if you're a new listener and you enjoyed the show, even if you're not a new listener and you enjoy listening to us, please go on Apple and give us a 5-star rating and review. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it so much if you just smash that like button. It's so simple. Subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.